West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
It's taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? It's a Wednesday, a big Wednesday, August 5. Good to see you on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV. Thank you for joining us here, the Bill Press Show, this Wednesday, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio right here on Capitol Hill. Big day in Washington. President Obama giving a major speech this afternoon at American University, where he will be informing the nation about the Iran nuclear deal, what's in it, what's not in it, why it's important, why it's good for the United States, good for the world, and yes, even good for Israel. But part of the president's effort to sell this deal before he goes off for his long summer vacation, leaving Friday afternoon, up for Martha's Vineyard. Meanwhile, President Obama celebrating his birthday yesterday in style, going out with a whole group of friends last evening to Rose's Luxury, a great little restaurant just 2 blocks from our studio here on Capitol Hill. Rose's Luxury, rated last year by Bon Appetit magazine the best new restaurant in the entire country. And the President and the First Lady and friends dined there last night. We welcome them to our neighborhood. Hope they enjoyed it and come back again soon. Fox News has made it official. We now know the top 10 who will be in the first presidential debate Thursday evening. The big news is that Chris Christie and John Kasich made the grown-up table. That means that Rick Perry and Bobby Jindal will be at the kids' table together with George Pataki, Lindsey Graham, Carly Fiorina, and Jim Gilmore. And in the CBS latest poll, Donald Trump has a higher rating than George Bush and Scott Walker combined. Should make for an interesting debate. And interesting calls coming up at 866-55-PRESS. Thanks for being with us this Wednesday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. So this is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me. Help me. Your hands. Help me. Your hands.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Let's get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy?
Yes, we are exfilling.
It's actually around 92, 94, there was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects, like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
Okay. And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with, and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. Hey, what do you say? Hello, everybody. You believe it or not, it is National Oyster Day.
Wow,
Bet you
really?
didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
I'll tell you, I forget who said it. It was a brave man who first ate an oyster.
Right.
But I love them. And love being with you, back with you from New Hampshire. So good to see you today on this Wednesday, August 5. It is the Bill Press Show, here from our nation's capital, with you in every corner of this great country of ours, and bringing you the news of the day. Not much happening here in Washington, D.C. Big speech by President Obama today. Otherwise, the Congress is out of town. They think that they think it's like France, where everybody gets a whole month of August off, right? Yeah, that's what they do. They just close up shop and go away. But we are here on the job to bring you up to date on the news of the day here from Washington, D.C., such as it is, or around the country. And, of course, engage you in lively conversation about it all. We love to hear your take on the news of the day, so give us a holler at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Peter Ruckburn and Elisa Murphy leading Team Press here today.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, good morning. Good to have you back.
Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Yes, indeed. Jamie Benson, he's still on vacation. But Ray Rogers is here to take your calls, our screener at 866-55-PRESS. And it's so good to see Cyprian Bolding back here from, was about a month in Paris. And
oh, look at this guy.
Bonjour, Bill Press.
Bonjour.
No. Ça va? Ça va, Bill?
Oui, ça va très bien, merci.
Merci.
You're leaving me in the dust, man. I don't know.
T'as beaucoup aimé Paris, oui?
Je m'appelle Cyprien. First time American in 2 weeks. Je ne parle pas anglais, je parle français. Du tout bit.
Oh, all right.
Un peu.
Obama, that's all I know.
Obama!
I'm impressed. Look at this. France, Paris hat.
With a beret.
And with the beret, yeah. And the mustache that goes with it.
Oh, no mustache.
You don't have any wine for us this morning? No?
Wine at the cellar.
Oh.
Got to go to work.
Cellar. La cave. C'est la cave. C'est pas la cellar. La cave. All right. Okay.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Revoir.
Oh, my God.
Beautiful.
I'm telling you. Yeah, he's out of control.
I know, right?
So I knew when he came back.
So good.
I knew when he came back, he'd be out of control.
Oh, man. It's nice to have Cyprian back.
It is indeed. But the whole...
Dude. So funny.
The whole crowd out of control.
A little out of control, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Man, indeed. So good to see you today, and we've got a great lineup for you. David Jackson will join us from the White House, of course, USA Today, as always. Congressman, it's hard to top that, though. Congressman David Price will be along a little bit later, and Steve Shepard, lead political reporter for Politico. He's the guy who's been tracking who's in and who's out of the first debate, and he got it absolutely right. Steve will come in and tell us all about it. And yes, I am back from the clown show in New Hampshire. You know what I realized, by the way? This is, I've gone to New Hampshire many times, covering the presidential primary.
Sure.
This is the first time I've ever been to New Hampshire, not in the middle of winter.
Oh, wow.
Was it pretty?
There's a very pretty state under that ice. I was really
It's good to know.
around. It's the first time I've ever been up there when it wasn't.
How funny is that?
2 degrees and snow and ice everywhere. Yeah.
Political reporters everywhere.
Right.
Will now see that, like,
It was very pretty. So
not so bad.
my advice from now on is go up in the summer, spring and summer. Don't go in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
Right. But I'll
to
tell
know.
you all about the big clown show up in New Hampshire. But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
just a couple of other stories making news. Okay, this is a little gruesome story.
well, but who was running the cameras while Cyprian was in here?
He's that good. He can do it while he's on air. All right, this next story is a little gruesome, but it's fascinating. It's a fascinating story. It's all about boa constrictors. So when we think about boa constrictors, and I know how much you love snakes.
I was just going to say, don't get me started.
But when we think about boa constrictors and how they kill their prey, up until now we thought that they wrapped around them and squeezed them until they suffocated them, and then they'd eat them whole, right?
Or crush them, I
Or
thought.
crush them. That's been the sort of common knowledge.
right.
Well, the Journal of Experimental Biology took a look at how a boa constrictor attacks in slow motion, and it's actually not by suffocating or crushing an animal. It is by cutting off its blood supply, which sounds kind of gruesome, again, but it's actually a lot easier for the soon-to-be dinner than it would be to suffocate. They cut off the blood supply to the brain, which automatically knocks the animal out very, very quickly. And then the snake begins to eat.
Okay. So what do we do with that information?
Just letting you know, man.
Well, if you're on the metro here in D.C., you
They
might
saw
come
a snake on the
across a
metro.
snake.
Look at Bill.
There was one yesterday.
Look at Bill.
No.
Why would you
Yes.
tell him that? Why would you tell Bill that?
Have fun, Bill. I hope you make it to the
I'll show you the
briefing.
picture.
No, really?
Yeah.
A snake? Somebody put it on there.
I'll show you.
Fell from a rafter.
No.
Don't.
What?
Look at him.
A rafter on the train?
I think it was on
At
the
the station,
At the station.
Oh, my God.
Wear a hat today.
I'll find you a picture, Bill.
Wait a minute. What line?
Was it the red line?
Which one do you always take?
Not the
It's
red
the
line.
one you take.
Which the one
I
that you
take
always
the snake-free train.
The snake-free train. Hang on, I'll find a
Whoa.
picture for you. I'll show it.
All
to you.
right, okay.
It's not good if you're
I
scared
hope
of
it
it.
wasn't a boa.
There you go, Bill. There's a picture of it. Look at that. Look at the size of
Whoa.
that thing.
That's a big black snake.
I know.
Oh, my God.
Uh-oh. You got Uber handy on your phone
Good luck.
there?
Yeah, I was gonna
Good
say.
luck. Head down to the White House.
I'll be walking to the White House today.
All right, so James Harden from the NBA's Houston Rockets, he is about to cash in on a big, big deal. It's not a new contract for playing basketball, but it could be a big contract for wearing sneakers. Adidas has reportedly offered James Harden a $200 million shoe deal.
God. Wow.
They say that this is going to cover 13 years, and he currently wears Nike shoes. A lot of basketball players wear Nikes. And they're trying to start their own thing, really trying to break free of the Nike stuff in the NBA. So they think James Harden is the guy to do it. $200 million.
And who's offering that?
Adidas.
Adidas. Oh, my God.
I guess that's what it takes to get people to not wear Nikes.
I guess so. Yeah,
know what?
Nike paid Kevin Durant $300 million for 10 years.
Wow, that's
last year.
absurd.
So they're really
This is how long?
13 years.
Shoot. I'd wear those shoes for, for 13
I'd wear Bobos
years.
for 13 years if I got. Yeah, I'd wear terrible shoes.
Birkenstocks, 13 years?
Yeah.
You give me the money, baby.
Yeah.
I wear them anyhow. But
All right, let's take a look at the highest paid actors in the world. Do you know who number one is? Any
Tom
guesses?
Cruise.
Tom Cruise is not a bad guess. However, he is not number one. Number one is...
Meryl Streep?
We're talking actors.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Actresses are coming later. by the way.
Okay.
Number one actor in the world, highest paid actor in the world, Robert Downey Jr.
Really?
Yeah. Here's the way he got so much money. Now, he worked out a deal early on in the days of Iron Man that any film that Iron Man appears in, he gets a chunk of, right? And based off of box office sales.
Yeah.
So you've got all three of the Iron Man movies. You've got the Avengers movie. And then this year you had Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, which he gets a large chunk of. So congratulations to Robert Downey Jr.
Okay. Yes, indeed. Here we go. It was a lot of fun up in New Hampshire. Wanted to tell you all about it. The big forum, the Voters First Forum is what they called it, at St. Anselm's College on Monday evening. There were 14 candidates out of 17 who took part in it. And the way, I got to tell you, the only way to really get to know these candidates and to really get a real feel for them is to size them up, is to see them in person. You can't really, you learn a lot from TV, and most people, that's as close to ever get to the candidates. But I know a lot of them, and I wanted to, but some of them I'd never seen up front, and I wanted to get a first-hand glimpse.
This is why people still go on the road, why reporters still go on the road.
Yeah,
it's important to see them out
And
there.
in fact, I went up there with Sabrina Siddiqui and Evan McMorris Santoro, two
Very
friends
nice.
of Bill, and met them up there at any rate. So the way it worked is, there were supposed to be 14 on stage. Rand Paul and Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz had to stay in they chose to stay in Washington so they could vote to defund Planned Parenthood, which tells you their priorities. And but on stage up there were except for Donald Trump and Mike Huckabee, all the rest of the candidates. And the way that it worked is they all came out on stage first and all lined up, and that was a big photo. And then they all sat in the front row of the auditorium, side by side. They had put their names on little you know how in the lottery the balls bounce around? Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
they had those balls bouncing around backstage with their picture on. Each one had a little ball with his picture on it, or her picture on it, and they picked them out, and that's the order that they went in. And there was one moderator on stage, and so they came up. Maybe you saw it on C-SPAN, and they would sit there for like 5 and answer questions for 5 minutes. And then they'd be yanked off and somebody else would come on. And then after the 11 who were in New Hampshire all answered their questions. Rick Perry went first, by the way, and Jeb Bush went last. It was just the luck of the draw. Then the three senators from Washington did their turn, and then there was a second round of just maybe one or two quick questions, and then they each got 30 seconds to address the audience. But I got to tell you, so my takeaways from the whole event were, first of all, that having seen all 11 of them up close, there's not one of them, not one, that I think is ready to be president of the United States or has what it takes to be president of the United States. It wasn't like, okay, I could see these two or three maybe. No. The other thing is that the whole event was sort of... well, let me say, like almost a non-event, because the one guy who was really missing and his presence was hovering sort of like over the entire auditorium was Donald Trump. That very day, a poll came out that showed Donald Trump leading in New Hampshire 26%, double what George Bush had, which was Jeb Bush, 13% in New Hampshire. And yet, the number one guy wasn't there. And he wasn't there because he chose not to go there, because he said the union leader would never endorse him anyway, so I'm not going to waste my time.
It's a brand new way of campaigning and getting your message out there.
And by the way, that has been amplified by the fact that last night, day after this poll, the CBS national poll came out showing Donald Trump with 24% nationwide among GOP voters, Jeb Bush at 13%, Scott Walker at 10%, which means Donald Trump has more than Jeb Bush and Scott Walker combined. So the big front runner wasn't there. As I said, it was like going to the opera when the lead singer never showed up, right? So you just have the chorus singing maybe, but not the lead. The other thing I tell you is that some of the people I thought who the least high in the polls did better than some of the others. Lindsey Graham kind of stole the show. He was folksy.
Isn't that funny?
I know, he was folksy, he was funny. Now, I disagree with everything he says, but here's an example when he's talking about now remember, he's talking to he's got to throw red meat to a conservative audience, right? So in talking about the Clintons, he does it with a sort of maybe sick twist sense of humor.
I'm fluent in Clinton speak. You want me to translate, Jack? When Bill says, I didn't have sex with that woman, he did. When she says, I'll tell you about building the pipeline when I get to be president, means she won't. And when she tells us, trust me, you've got all the emails that you need, we haven't even scratched the surface. So I understand this crowd, and I can beat them, and if we can't beat them, it doesn't matter.
All right.
All right. And Lindsey Graham said, my foreign policy is very simple. I mentioned this yesterday with Jimmy Williams. By the way, thanks, Jimmy Williams, for sitting in yesterday. He said, my foreign policy is very simple. You got a closed fist or an open hand. You decide.
And it became the theme.
That's, I mean, it's goofy, but
it is.
That sticks.
Yeah.
That
right.
sticks.
And overall, so I thought Lindsey Graham was the one
You
who
decide.
did himself the most good. Overall, the people who were pretty far, for the most part, were down in the polls, I thought, did well. Lindsey Graham among them. Rick Perry did well. He was folksy and funny. He got off the biggest laugh of the night. I mentioned this yesterday when the moderator, Jack Heath, asked him, what government agencies would you cut? And Rick Perry, everybody remembered, of course. Oops. And he laughed and he said, I think I've heard this question before. Then he didn't have to answer it. He just shrugged it off.
It doesn't matter at that point.
Right.
Well,
and I'll tell you, Ted Cruz did well. Wrong. My notes. If you look at my notes from sitting in the audience, wrong but strong.
Put that on a bumper sticker.
Yeah, right. I mean, you know what? He'd be proud of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was remote. So my question to you is, and to tell you more about it when we come back here, any of these candidates you worried about? Which ones do you think are the strongest? Which one would you like least to have to run against? Which one would you like least to be the Republican nominee? 866-55-PRESS here on a big Wednesday, the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see. You have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi, have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle? Sorry? A place called the Jungle, have you heard of it?
We're not making enough for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go.
I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, you know, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. You know, the dope dealers ain't scared because, you know, they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour, yes indeed, back from a up-close look at the Republican candidates for president in New Hampshire on Monday evening. Tell me which one you would least like to run against. Which one would scare you the most? Is it Jeb Bush? Is it Ted Cruz? Is it Scott Walker? Is it Marco Rubio? I'll tell you, I mentioned the ones that I thought who did the best. The one I think who helped himself the least on Monday night was Jeb Bush. I mean, there he was. He was just one of 14 people, you know, as Evan McMorris Santoro said afterwards. It was like he was wallpaper. He didn't really say anything. There was a lot of time on his hands. The one that I think helped himself the most there was John Kasich. Kasich, who came in last among the candidates, except for Jim Gilmore, who's a joke. And yet Kasich did well Monday night, and he's going to be on stage in the big debate in Cleveland. He made it. He and Chris Christie made it, and Rick Perry and Bobby Jindal did not. Continue our conversation on the other side. Among the Republicans, which one do you want to run against the least?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there in black and white in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen? I forgive the police. We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers, but I'll stay radical. Love their brothers. We gotta love them too. But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together. I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too. Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour now. Here we go. It is the Bill Press Show. We are live from Washington, D.C. on this Wednesday, August 5. We are brought to you today by the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers Union. Under President Joseph Sellers, the good men and women of the SMART Union giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. Think about that. Sheet metal, air, rail, and transportation workers all together in one strong union. Find out more about their good work at their website, smart-union.org. Back from New Hampshire in the big show Monday night. Had a chance to talk with Chris Christie and John Kasich and Bobby Jindal and Rick Santorum in either before the debate or in the spin room after the debate, and getting your comments on which one you think would be the strongest, meaning which one you would least like to see as the Democratic nominee, as the Republican nominee. Peter, you have a few comments here before we move on.
Don't forget we're on Twitter at BP Show. At BP Show, you can always check in with us there. Quick comment from Mama for Obama, who says, so Lindsey Graham is going after Hillary using the sexual affair of her husband. So can we now go after Lindsey Graham's sex life? Cordell wonders, imagine the chaos if Donald Trump is the GOP nominee. What would that say about the Republican Party? Does he represent their base? And Kristen says
he is the face of the Republican Party today.
He's gone wild, yeah.
And he definitely represents their base.
And Kristen Searles says, I suppose my vote would be for Chris Christie because he is the most normal out of all of those 17 ridiculous candidates. Which might be...
You know, at one time, and I think I've said it on this program, I thought that Chris Christie would be the biggest challenge. And the one that we should fear the most. I don't feel that way.
I used to think that way, yeah.
I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way anymore. I still think Jeb Bush would be the one that I would fear the most. Maybe not Scott Walker, by the way.
No.
Not Scott Walker.
What about Rubio? People there, a lot of people have a lot of stock in Rubio.
I'll tell you, Kasich.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Kasich's got sort of an interesting story because he's a little bit, he didn't show it. He was afraid to show it Monday night. In fact, he was asked, where do you differ with the Republican Party? What makes you different from the Republican? And he of your fellow Republicans, and he says, I'm not here to attack my Republican Party basic. I'm here to attack Democrats. So I asked him in the spin room, you didn't mention Medicaid. You're the only Republican governor who's expanded Medicaid. Is that going to hurt you in the Republican primary? And he said, no, it would not. But I can see in a general election, he could say, I'm a maybe somebody else might use it too. Compassionate conservative.
Here we go.
Kind of what it is. But
he certainly seems to be a sleeper, and the fact that he got into this top 10 in the debate, the Fox News debate tomorrow, is a huge step for him.
Right.
Because he was way down there.
The other thing I have to tell you, the people that I was least impressed by Monday night, underwhelmed by Ben Carson. Remember at one time everybody said, he's the real threat. He was flat. He was lame. Very poor performance. I mean, I count him out, I think. Carly Fiorina. No, she may be the only woman on stage. She's not going to light it on fire. She's just like angry. She's just angry. Didn't come across well. George Pataki, of course, is nothing. Rick Santorum, I think Santorum may not even make it to Iowa. He's got nothing going for him.
Wow, yeah.
He's just an old record, stuck record, right? He's trying to, and he's got no money. He raised $600,000.
I'm amazed he can raise that much, honestly, but you can't compete with that.
No, right. And then Bobby Jindal. Jindal might as well go back to Louisiana, I think. Seriously.
They don't want him there.
No, yeah. So, can
I ask you, what do you think of Rand Paul? How do you think he did?
Not that well, I like Rand Paul because of his position on drones and his position on civil liberties. He's good on that. His position on criminal justice reform. One of the problems that he had was he had a little hard time handling the delay in the television and the questions. So he sort of looked like a deer caught in the headlights for a while until the sound kind of came through. So did Marco Rubio. Ted Cruz? Ted Cruz is charged. It looked like Ted Cruz was sitting right there.
How funny.
Yeah. And that took a little bit away from his performance. And the other thing, overall, though, what was striking to me, too, was, first of all, they had the worst moderator in the world, a guy named Jack Heath, who's the most right-wing radio talk show host in New Hampshire. And they got him. And so all he was doing was lobbing softballs at these guys. Some of the questions were hilariously funny, like, so what makes you such a great governor?
Oh, God.
Tell us how you've been, what's the secret of your success because you've been such an outstanding governor, or, questions like that. So, and tell us again why you would be a great president of the United States. And then, and so we'd lob these softballs up, no follow-up, never a challenge. He would just throw one question and then move on. And the one thing we found out is they are all against immigration reform. They are all basically anti-immigrant. They are all against Planned Parenthood. They are all against climate change. They are all against the Iran nuclear deal. And the only place that they all differed was how many bombs they would drop on ISIS. Every one of them.
What a question.
The questions were almost, okay, now Chris Christie was just up on stage here, and Chris Christie said he would drop 10,000 bombs on ISIS the first day. How many would you drop on ISIS? It wasn't quite that bad, but each one tried to outdo each other in terms of how fast they would make the decision to send ground troops in and bomb. We're already bombing them, of course, but bomb them even more. Right?
Yeah.
So it was outdoing each other in that respect. Yeah.
Funny.
But seriously, no differences in policy across the board. They're all equally bad on the policies. We did hear from. Well, I wanted to mention Chris Christie, but classic with so this sort of continued Parenthood thing, which was a big issue. Jeb Bush stepped in it yesterday, the day after New Hampshire. He goes down to Nashville yesterday to speak to the Southern Baptist Conference, and this has become the big issue now, the Planned Parenthood thing. And we'll talk more about this at the top of the hour. But Jeb Bush is asked about whether or not the government should cut off. And remember, 3 senators stayed behind to cast a vote to defund Planned Parenthood. And now they're even talking about shutting down the government in order to defund Planned Parenthood. Shutting down the government. That's what some of the senators, led by Ted Cruz, are talking about. Jeb Bush was asked about it yesterday at the Southern Baptist Conference in Nashville.
You could take dollar for dollar, although I'm not sure we need $500 million for women's health issues. But if you took dollar for dollar, there are many extraordinarily fine organizations, community health organizations that exist.
Imagine. We don't need to worry about women's health. He is saying, we could take all the money that we spend on women's health in this country, get rid of all of the money we spend for women's health. Hillary Clinton,
boy, oh boy,
jumped on that yesterday. She was out in Denver, and her response to Jeb Bush.
Now, he's got no problem giving billions of dollars away to super wealthy and powerful corporations, but I guess women's health just isn't a priority for him.
Yeah. Exactly.
When you say he stepped in it, he really stepped in it in a big, big way, because not only is that a dumb comment to make, but he acknowledges that Planned Parenthood is way more than just abortions.
Exactly. It is about women's health. And by the way, speaking of candidates and candor among candidates, we heard a little candor from Chris Christie yesterday when he was asked about Planned Parenthood, and he ends up talking about family planning.
I'm a Catholic, but I've used birth control, and not just the rhythm method, okay?
Oh no.
I put that in the category of TMI.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
This is yes. Chris Christie, I don't want to know anything about your sex life. I prefer to believe that you don't have one.
Right.
Okay?
I'm happy to not know about it.
I'm happy to not know about it. Yeah.
Enjoy breakfast, everyone.
All right. David Jackson standing by. At the White House early this morning, the day after the president's big birthday. Tell you all about it with David Jackson.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are 3 incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hi, this is Chris Van Hollen. I always enjoy my mornings with good coffee and great conversation on the Bill Press Show. Congratulations on your 10th anniversary. Big thumbs up.
How about it? Boom. Chris Van Hollen from Montgomery County, Maryland, part of the Democratic leadership, now a candidate for the U.S. Senate in the state of Maryland, and a good friend, and we thank him for his anniversary message there. Well, big day for President Obama yesterday. Big birthday. Everybody at the White House celebrating, including White House correspondent for USA Today, David Jackson. David, I was down at Rose's Luxury last night. I didn't see you in the on the rooftop there.
No, I don't stand in line to get meals. And if I'm not president, I won't be able to bypass the line.
Let me tell you, the president did not stand in line either.
No.
Rose's Luxury, but he was out in style last night in our neighborhood, 2 blocks from our studio.
I thought about that when I heard that. So,
well, I walked down. Carol and I walked down there to check out the scene and to say hello to all of our colleagues who were stationed nearby in the restaurant called Medium Rare.
There you go. Did you feel safe with all that Secret Service thing?
Oh, man, there were so many Secret Service people on the street. It wasn't.
A couple birthdays ago, he went to a La Bar downtown, which is not far from where I live. So, the place was just shut down. It was.
Funny.
It's amazing when a president shows up in an average neighborhood, and life just changes.
Well, it was interesting that last night he went in through the alley on 8th Street. You would never know he was in the restaurant.
No, that's a good idea. Yeah,
traffic was still moving. They didn't shut the street down. People were walking up and down in front of the restaurant, and there were people inside the restaurant. I believe I didn't go in, but I believe they had there's a special rooftop for Rose's Luxury. because people were dining downstairs, but there were 3 Secret Service agents at the front door. So I think unless you were inside before he arrived, you were not going to get in.
No, he had to be in the house.
It's hard enough to get into that damn restaurant.
Exactly. I was wondering about that too, man. I just hope those people didn't stand out too long.
Man,
but we've been there. It's a great restaurant. So the president. By the way, I was up in New Hampshire Monday, David. I missed you.
I know. I was in Florida with the National Urban League a few days before that, and I'm going down to Cleveland tonight. So they told me to come on home before the debate. But yeah, that's. I kind of missed that, but I got to say the forum wasn't the greatest I've ever seen.
Oh God, it was terrible.
Yeah, right. I had a feeling it might be, so that was another reason I decided to go ahead and skip it.
It was good to see them all up close, but the forum was not was designed really so not to have to show any differences or to give them any of them a chance to really stand out. Right.
I think so too, and I think that's the one reason they were able to get so many candidates. It was kind of put together at the last minute to try to poke at Fox News for its debate rules, and it just didn't.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people didn't get is that this was really a protest for the Fox debate, right? In that this was like Iowa and New Hampshire saying these national polls don't mean anything, right? You got to look at the local level, at the state by state, but
there's a lot of upset people in the Republic. I think even some of the supporters of people who got in the main debate aren't happy with the way this is being handled.
So what do you expect in Cleveland?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Do you attack Donald Trump, or do you let him try to attack himself, if you will? It's not going to be an easy decision for those other 9 candidates. And given the fact that Trump now has opened up a big lead in the Republican polls, I mean, national or not, he's ahead in New Hampshire. I think he's ahead in South Carolina. He's doing well in Iowa. He's definitely the front runner, and his opponents going to have to figure out how to deal with that.
Yeah, and the CBS poll that came out yesterday shows him at 24, which is twice as much as Bush and Walker combined. Right. So he's a factor. There was a lot of talk about that in New Hampshire. The other thing I think we have to admit is that the moderators, the moderator in New Hampshire was just a disaster, right?
Well, I don't want to,
They're going to have a lot tougher moderators Thursday night. Is my point.
Let's not get in New Hampshire. I think one of the reasons the candidates showed up is that they didn't want to mix it up. They didn't want it to be a difficult assignment. That's the only reason they accepted in the first place. The difficult assignment's going to be in Cleveland tomorrow, and they're going to be 3 Fox anchors all going to be trying to ask the tougher question. They're kind of competing among themselves, if you will. So, yeah, it's going to be an arduous experience for all of them, except maybe for Trump, who seems to enjoy it one way or another.
To bask in that, right?
Yeah.
Now, President Obama today, big speech at American University. Tell us about it.
Right. He's basically laying out his case for the Iran nuclear deal. It's basically an extended version of the remarks he made the morning he announced the agreement. It's going into detail about why we should support it, and why Congress should support it, and talking about really there's no real alternative towards Iran getting a nuclear weapon except for this deal, and it will avoid the prospect of a military confrontation in the Middle East. The location of this speech is interesting. It's at American University.
Why American University?
Right. And because 52 years ago, President John F. Kennedy gave his great speech there about proposing a nuclear weapons agreement with the then Soviet Union. Gave a very famous speech about the dangers of nuclear war, talking about how we all breathe the same air, we all want the same things for our children, and making the case for what were then nuclear weapons agreements with the Soviets. President Obama's going to be speaking kind of in that same vein and saying basically this is the best way to avoid any kind of military or even a nuclear confrontation is to sign on to this agreement with Iran.
Wow. Yeah, so a lot of historic significance to the speech and to the location of the speech, right?
Right.
And then Friday, off to the vineyard, huh?
That's funny, a couple of weeks ago we got the notice he was going to be leaving Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Then last week we got the notice, well, he's going to be leaving late Friday night.
I know.
Yesterday we got the notice, well, he's going to be leaving about 5 o'clock on Friday.
I know, it keeps getting earlier.
Yes, this thing gets earlier and earlier. This thing's been moved up about 18 hours here in the last couple of weeks.
Do you have the feeling he's eager to get out of town?
Yes, very much so. The only question left is whether he does a news conference on Friday before he leaves, which I think is 50-50. I think there's a very good chance he will because he'll want to respond to what happens on Thursday night in Cleveland. So look for the president to weigh in one way or another on Friday, whether it's a news conference or some other venue.
All right. Okay. Hey, David, great to catch up with you. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Bill.
Have fun in Cleveland.
I'll do it.
All right. See you later. David Jackson at the White House for USA Today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, at the top of the next hour, we're going to be talking this whole big flap over Planned Parenthood. A little bit later, joined by Congressman David Price. Peter.
What's the president going to be up to when he leaves the office? He is not exactly going to be...
For vacation? Or?
Well, for good. When he's out of office in a couple of years. What are his priorities? He was asked that question at the Mandela Washington Fellowship Program in Washington earlier this week. And he says, quote, "The first thing I'm probably going to do is catch up on my sleep." So he's not exactly worried about that post-presidency legacy quite yet. He just wants to catch up on a little sleep.
I think he gets a good night's sleep. You know, he's not known as a real early riser. I think what he's going to do is work on his golf game.
I think he's been doing a lot of that while he's been in office.
But, I mean, he's got a damn good game.
Yeah,
but, you know, could always get better.
Sure.
All right. We're on a roll here on a Wednesday. Stay with us. The Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Pistons fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's now official for the big debate Thursday. Chris Christie and John Kasich make the cut. Bobby Jindal and Rick Perry do not. Hello, everybody. Wednesday, big Wednesday, August 5. Here we are. So good to see you today. Thank you for joining us here on The Bill Press Show. We're on the radio on your local progressive talk radio station. We're on the radio on the great radio apps, two of them, both of them free, iHeartRadio and TuneIn. They're free, download them. Follow us on the radio wherever you travel in this country. And we're here with you on TV, on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Hello, everybody. And I'm back from New Hampshire and the first big Republican forum Monday night. Thanks to Jimmy Williams for filling in yesterday. And we've now looked forward to the first Republican debate, actually, not a issues forum like we had where there was no difference really among the candidates. No differences among the candidates even permitted. Thursday night, tomorrow night, should be a lot different with the first debate with the top 10. Two debates, actually, tomorrow, both covered on Fox News. One, the kids table at 5 o'clock, and then at 9 o'clock, the grown-ups table. It'll be so much fun to watch. Good to have you with us. As we tell you the news of the day, you tell us what you think about it, of course. Don't forget the toll-free number is 866-55-PRESS. And you can send us your comments on Twitter. Love hearing from you. And on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Team Press here, Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. So Jamie Benson is still off. He's got all this week off.
We can't all possibly be here.
It's impossible. It's impossible
happen.
in the summer to have all of us here at the same time. But Ray Rogers is here, kind enough to fill in for Jamie Benson. And yes, I'm a little nervous to even say this, but Cyprian Balding is back. If you haven't seen him yet, he is back. Speaking French, wearing a beret. He'll never be the same.
And jump roping.
Yes, yeah, and right. Jump roping, right. How do you keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris? Yes. Well, you can't, as we have learned. Anyhow, it's good to have Cyprian back, too. Gawker, Donald Trump, of course, gave out Lindsey Graham's telephone number. Gawker got Donald Trump's phone number and published his phone number.
Yep.
And now everybody is giving Donald Trump a call, including, so President Obama thought, hey, what the hell? I'll give Donald Trump a call, as Jimmy Fallon showed us last night.
Look, Donald,
The reason I called is people are talking smack about you. All right? Don't you care about the way you're portrayed in the media?
The media loves me. They try to act like they don't, but they do. They say they're done. They say they've had enough, but yet they keep coming back for more. They're like Chris Christie at a Golden Corral buffet.
Oh, snap. Oh, snap. Snap, crackle, and pop. Snap, crackle, and pop.
By the way, those are the same sounds it makes when Chris Christie sits on an old wooden chair. Snap, crackle, and pop.
Oh, now you double dipped. You double dipped on the Christie chip.
Oh, man. Poor Chris Christie. Doesn't matter how much weight he loses, he'll still make fun of him.
I mean, they are kind of getting a little... The Chris Christie jokes are getting a little tired, honestly. Jimmy Fallon keeps going back to that well, and it's just...
Whoever does that Donald Trump, it's a fun...
That's Fallon. That's Fallon doing
That is Fallon, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he even had the hair for the occasion.
He does a pretty good Trump, I have to say. Anyhow, we got a lot coming up here from the Center for American Progress joining us to talk about the president's climate change proposals. Almost got lost in all the rest of the news this week. Steve Shepard will be here from Politico to handicap tomorrow night's debate, and Congressman David Price from North Carolina on the Iran nuclear deal. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Hey, Bill, it's hot out there.
It is hot. Yesterday was really hot.
It was pretty hot out there. I'll tell you just how hot it is. The temperature at National Airport was 93 degrees yesterday, which isn't so bad. It's over 90. It's hot. But that puts our total number of days at or above 90 degrees at 37 days this year. That is one above average for the entire year. So we have already reached our typical annual number of 90-degree days. And there's still plenty of summer left to go. We're not going to see, we're still going to be able to see some more 90-degree temperatures. So.
It's early August, so who knows?
You have a little breakfast there, Bill?
I was just going to say,
you can have a little breakfast
hot,
there during the show?
What you need for a hot day like this is Chobani yogurt. I'm just trying their watermelon. Never had it before.
How's the watermelon?
Oh, God, it is so good.
Okay.
Your face is orgasmic right now.
You're so happy right now.
It's perfect.
We
All
can...
right.
Go ahead.
You're
How about
up,
this?
I'm eating.
This
You're
is my
talking.
time. This is Bill's break time. All right, so Netflix announced a huge change to their parental leave policy. This is a big deal because Netflix is a big company, and yesterday they announced they're allowing employees to take unlimited maternity or paternity leave during the first year of their child's birth or an adoption. So they're saying they're leaving it up to the employee for that entire first year. You can take off the whole year if you like, and your job will still be there. They're saying take off all the time you need. They can return on a full or a part-time basis and even take subsequent time off later if they need it.
Wow.
Isn't that huge?
Yeah.
Netflix says they will keep paying them their normal salary, so you don't even have to switch to disability, which is what, a lot of companies do. So they're
For
just...
a whole year?
For a whole year. Not bad, huh?
No.
Canada does that. There's a lot of Canadian companies.
Canada does a lot of things better than we do in terms of healthcare and things like that, but yeah, for sure. And Pope Francis is speaking out again. This time he is calling on the church to be more tolerant towards Catholics who have divorced. He says that divorced Catholics who remarry and the children of those marriages deserve better treatment from the church and from churchgoers. He urged pastors to avoid treating those couples as if they had been excommunicated.
Yeah, I mean, that's... I'm glad he said that. I thought that the church had already moved on, but I mean, it used to be. A
lot of people have
divorced people were not allowed to receive the sacraments. They were just treated as criminals, basically.
They were treated as if they were living in sin. But the Pope says no more. He doesn't want to have that happen. He doesn't want the church to shun those people any longer. Francis, man, all over it.
He is indeed. Well, I got to tell you this. So the latest big issue for the Republicans. Just want to chat briefly about this and get your take on it too. is the big enemy number one, Planned Parenthood. Yes, indeed. Up in New Hampshire Monday night, one of the many things, actually, that all the Republican candidates agreed. They are all against Planned Parenthood. How long have we had this debate? 50 years?
Yeah. Seems that way.
They're all against Planned Parenthood. This is like, it's one of those chestnuts that the Republicans keep throwing out there, right? Every once in a while, like, defunding NPR, right?
Oh, God.
It used to be a big one for Newt Gingrich, and it'll come back again. And so the Planned Parenthood is back again. Monday night, every one of the 14 Republican candidates in this forum said they were against Planned Parenthood, wanted to defund Planned Parenthood. In fact, 3 senators, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, and Ted Cruz, stayed in Washington so they could vote to defund Planned Parenthood. And now, in fact, some of those Republicans, led by Ted Cruz, are, because they failed in that vote to defund Planned Parenthood on Monday, some of them, including led by Ted Cruz, are talking now about when they come back from vacation and they have to vote on the budget, they will refuse to vote on the budget, meaning they will shut down the government. Again, it worked so well the last time. They will shut down the government unless Planned Parenthood is defunded. Shut down the government over Planned Parenthood. It is just outrageous. And the whole thing is sparked. By the way, I got to tell you right now, I thought Elizabeth Warren said it best yesterday. Elizabeth Warren came on the floor of the Senate, and she said, I come to the Senate floor today to ask my Republican colleagues a question. Do you have any idea what year it is? Did you fall down, hit your head, and think you woke up in the 1950s or the 1890s? Should we call for a doctor? Because, she continued, I simply cannot believe that in the year 2015, the United States Senate would be spending its time trying to defund women's health care centers. On second thought, maybe I shouldn't be surprised. The Republicans have had a plan for years to strip away women's rights to make choices over their own bodies. And if you don't think that's what it's all about, listen to Jeb Bush yesterday. Jeb Bush, day after New Hampshire, down in Nashville, Tennessee, speaking to the Southern Baptist Conference, and he is asked about Planned Parenthood. And what should we do?
You could take dollar for dollar, although I'm not sure we need $500 million for women's health issues. But if you took dollar for dollar, there are many extraordinarily fine organizations, community health organizations that exist.
Whoa. I don't think we need $500 million for women's health issues. No, women's health issues. Women's health, not important. But, by the way, just politically, think about that. Over half of voters are women. This guy's running for president, right? Over half of Republican voters are women. And he just pissed them all off.
Yeah.
And said, I don't care about your health.
It should piss you off. If you're a woman, that should piss you off.
Yeah. It is not an important issue to me, right? I mean, Hillary Clinton fired back right away yesterday. I love it.
Now, he's got no problem giving billions of dollars away to super wealthy and powerful corporations, but I guess women's health just isn't a priority for him.
Yeah, clearly not a priority. Now, Jeb Bush is backtracking and says, I didn't mean I did. Yes, he did. And when you shut down Planned Parenthood, that's what you are doing. You are if you were to do it, you defunding women's health and their ability to get the kind of overall health care they need. There are 2.7 million Americans, women, for the most part, not all, but for the most part, who get their breast cancer screenings, who get their mammograms, who get their pap smears, who get all of that to take care of themselves, get their health care at Planned Parenthood health clinics. That's what they are. And by law already, federal funds cannot be used with any abortion-related procedures at Planned Parenthood. So this whole idea that we defund Planned Parenthood this latest attack to try of the anti-abortion funding is just totally misdirected. And what it really is part of the war on women, and to just do away with any healthcare clinics for women.
It's such a dishonest argument, this whole defunding Planned Parenthood. One of the great things about the times that we live in is all of these women are putting their stories out about their relationship with Planned Parenthood, right? I was in college.
How they depend
I had
on
some
it.
questions about some things that were going on. I was a college student. I went to Planned Parenthood. They gave me the answers that I needed. They helped me out with some women's health issues that you might not have the resources or the coverage or the money to deal with without someone who has your back, the way that Planned Parenthood does for
And look,
women.
And it's all been triggered by these videos that were released. I think up to 4 of them now. Remember, first of all, don't trust these videos. These videos have been doctored, just like, remember the one, that poor woman who lost her job in the agricultural department because
Shirley
they doctored
Sherrod, yeah.
Shirley Sherrod, a speech that she gave. It turned out to be a totally Breitbart, phony video. And the same thing with this video. The law prevents Planned Parenthood from selling fetal tissue, and making a profit on it. Law forbids it already. They do not do it. These videos, and by the way, the Planned Parenthood people who are having lunch with these people they didn't know should be told, just shut your mouth. Anyhow, that was stupid. But this is not a practice. Planned Parenthood is not in this practice. And then I must say, doctors, after, I mean, all kinds of medical expert advice out there, that being able to use some of these fetal tissue without making a profit on it for research, medical research into many diseases that we have today is potential for saving millions and millions of lives. So it's a practice that medical researchers depend on and say we need. But the whole issue, it's the far right, again, trying to one more time, to come up with some excuse, some phony issue for defunding Planned Parenthood, and every one of the Republican candidates has jumped on board, each trying to outdo the other in how much funding they would take away or what they're willing to do in order to defund Planned Parenthood, including to shut the government down. Is this going to go anywhere? 866-55-PRESS. I got to tell you, you're going to be hearing a lot about it between now and November 2016. And I think it's time that we stand up, and I'd like to see some Republican women stand up and say, hey, you know what? Our health is just as important as yours. 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
people love me.
My playfulness.
My beauty.
My power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired.
Tapped.
And tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They want to defund Planned Parenthood. I think it's up to us to defend Planned Parenthood. 27 minutes after the hour of the Bill Press Show. Joyce calling from Evanston, Illinois. Hi, Joyce.
Hi, good morning. I would like to say and thank you for the topic. Thanks for supporting us women. But I've used Planned Parenthood in 3 states. I was moved with my job. It's a trusted source. The women's health that they teach you, very thorough. There wasn't an agenda, but it was definitely a welcome, trusted source. And many of us, because we were so happy with the medical care, we actually left, money in a fund for other women to have the care.
Joyce, that's such a great story. And you are one of millions and millions and millions of women with similar stories, and I think it's important you tell your stories today. Thanks for the call. Christine in Shannondale, Pennsylvania. Hi, Christine.
Hi, this is, I'm calling because I've been calling the GOP for years, the greedy old propagandists. And it's really disturbing. It's really disturbing. I'm feeling like they're more and more like the American Taliban. They have this agenda against women.
They do indeed, and they deny it. But if you look at it on issue after issue after issue, and this is just the latest, right? Anything, certainly when it comes to women's health, they don't get it. They think it's their job to just deny women just a chance to get good basic health care, and a lot of women get it thanks to Planned Parenthood. When we come back, what's up with the president's climate change proposal? We'll find out.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour. Yes, indeed, The Bill Press Show this Wednesday, August 5. Good to see you. We're here in Washington, D.C. in our studio on Capitol Hill and brought to you today by the Laborers International Union of North America under President Terry O'Sullivan. Great men and women of the Laborers Union. A lot of them working right across the street from our studio, building a whole new building there here on Capitol Hill. We all live better because of their good work, Building America, and that's their website, LIUNA, L-I-U-N-A, buildsamerica.org. President Obama A historic new action taken this week in terms of climate change. He is committed to it. He realizes that he's not going to get much out of this Congress, and so he's decided to do as much as he can on his own through executive orders to move us into a fossil-free environment. Greg Dotson is the Vice President for Energy Policy at the Center for American Progress. The great Center for American Progress joins us in studio to tell us about the President's latest moves on climate change. Hello, Greg. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming in today. So the President issued some executive orders. These are final rules related to power plants, correct?
Absolutely right. It applies to both existing power plants and to newly constructed power plants.
All right. So let's start with, by the way, why are power plants such an important part of the equation?
They're just huge sources of pollution, representing basically a third of the entire carbon pollution of the country. And up until Monday...
nothing else is that big, right?
Nothing else is that big.
They're the greatest source of carbon pollution.
That's right. And then you have...
coal-fired plants?
Coal and natural gas are in that category. So fossil-based power plants are in that category.
Even natural gas-fired power plants?
Yeah, they're obviously much cleaner than coal-fired power plants, but they still have pollution associated with them.
Okay. And so what would the President require of existing plants?
So essentially what he's done is he's taken a look at what's feasible. What can we do with renewable energy that's now more affordable than ever? What can we do with just improving the efficiency of existing fossil power plants? And they've come up with state-based targets. And it's an incredibly flexible approach because essentially they'll tell every state they have to get reductions between, really they'll start the planning process now, but they won't have to start to comply until 2022. And they'll have to achieve reductions by 2030. And the overall number is we'll see about a third 32% reduction in their emissions.
32% by 2030.
That's right.
15 years from now, right? Yeah. Well, and then they can do it any way they want?
Any way they want. And I think
meaning they could shut these plants down, right?
Absolutely. They can do that. They can. And in some cases, that's going to be the most economic way to do it. But I think almost every time you look at it, the cheapest way to prevent pollution is through energy efficiency. People don't need to waste energy to have their needs met. They can have more efficient lighting. They can have more efficient appliances. And so I think that's going to be the leading compliance approach that states will use. And that's why this rule is actually expected to save people money. About $85 a year is what they're projecting per household. And that's real money. That's taking the family out to pizza once or twice a month, maybe, depending on how big your family is. It's helping pay for a prescription drug. It's, this is real money. And it's basically cleaning up the air, which is terrific for public health. It's good for the environment, and it's going to create some jobs.
Will is another way that they could get and meet this goal of 32% reduction in carbon emissions, moving more into wind, into solar, geothermal, or whatever?
And that actually is that's projected to be a very big growth aspect of this. The cost of solar has decreased by 75% since 2009. It's really gone gangbusters. People are now beginning to really realize that potential. And the same with wind energy. And I think in addition to energy efficiency, those will be the big areas that we will see a lot of growth on in the coming 15 years.
What about new power plants? So existing power plants are going to cut by 32%. Mm-hmm. New power plants?
So new power plants will have to...
Are we building new power plants?
Not as much as you would think. And that's because the projections of energy demand have really changed over the last few years. I think it's partially, if you were to pin it to one single effect, it's the growth of efficient lighting. We basically have been moving from these incandescent light bulbs to LEDs to fluorescent bulbs.
You mean those little squirrely bulbs that you...
But even the next...
Curly bulbs or whatever?
Even the next generation is LEDs, and you wouldn't even... The quality of light is much better than those fluorescent bulbs. And
It's good to know.
Yeah.
I mean, we use those little swirly ones. But yeah, I'd like to see some advancements made.
Yeah, the LED lights are much better, and they use just a fraction of what we typically use. But anyway, so the growth in demand for electricity, while it was expected to increase dramatically in the coming years, is now actually leveling off.
Right.
And so it's caused a decline in the need for new power plants.
I did interrupt you. So with new power plants, they just have to be more efficient, obviously, the most efficient, and they can't be coal plants, right?
They can be coal plants. But I think we'll see really the end of uncontrolled coal plants that don't have pollution controls. And that means that you'll be seeing some CCS, carbon capture and sequestration technologies, which essentially allows you to take out the carbon pollution and to inject it underground. And it's being demonstrated in Mississippi in the United States. It's being demonstrated in Canada. It's being used around the world.
What about nuclear power plants?
Could certainly be used as a compliance tool as well. I think a lot of people don't really expect that to be used that much simply because it's so expensive.
It's so expensive, and we still haven't figured out what we're going to do with the waste.
We
right?
really don't have a solution to that problem yet.
Right. So these are these executive orders, presidential executive orders, or EPA rules?
These are EPA rules. They are pursuant to the Clean Air Act, and they've gone through an incredibly rigorous process. They proposed the rule a year ago. They got 4.3 million public comments on it. Many of those comments were obviously supportive, but they've really engaged the states and electric utilities. And we saw that on Monday when 11 governors came out and supported the rule upon its announcement. A number of electric utilities came out in support of it. Many will still oppose, but we're seeing historic engagement by EPA to help address these issues.
Now, but I guess the reason I asked that question is this is not Congress passing a law.
Absolutely.
All right. So what effect does this have, and what could the next president simply pull the plug on these rules?
Well, Congress already passed a law. They passed the Clean Air Act. And the Clean Air Act says whenever there's a pollution that endangers the public, EPA can act. And so that's what EPA is doing. So I think as hard as it has been for EPA to put these rules into place, multi-year process, lots of comment and responding to comments, I think it'll be even harder for the next president to undo them because they're going to have to go through the same process to reverse it. And it has to be in accordance with law. And they're not going to be able to look at carbon pollution and say it doesn't affect people's health. They're not going to be able to make those legal findings. And so I think there's a lot of reason to think that these rules are here to stay and that power plants are going to be cleaning up their act.
What does this do in terms of moving us toward, taking climate change seriously? First of all, in terms of President Obama's role, right? The administration often says that he has done more than any other president to put this country on the road toward taking climate change seriously. True or false?
Absolutely true. I think he's going to go down in history as sort of the climate president. When you think back to 2007, the United States was expected to use more oil every single year than it used in the previous year for as far as we could see into the future. Always had. And he issued rules to regulate carbon pollution from tailpipes of automobiles. And now we will never use more oil. We're not projected to use any more oil than we used in 2010. So it's completely flattened out. It should be declining as those standards even strengthen. So he's done the transportation sector. He's now in the process, the administration's in the process of doing the same thing for heavy duty vehicles. And now we're taking it to power plants, which are the single biggest source. So he's gone systematically. In every case, it's a win-win. On the tailpipe standards, people are saving money on gasoline costs, even as the cars get cleaner. So, and we'll see the same thing with saving on power bills from this rule.
And then the question is too: does this give us a head start for the big summit in Paris later in the year, and the role that the United States might play in that summit? Whereas before, we have gone to these international conferences on climate change and not shown any leadership. That seems to have changed big time. Greg Dotson is here to tell us all about it. He's a vice president for energy policy at the Center for American Progress. This is an important issue affecting each and every one of us. I don't think there's any more important issue overall than climate change for the health of the planet and all the people on it. Give us your questions, your comments, 866-55-PRESS. Finally, a president who is taking it seriously.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
This is Governor Jerry Brown in California, and I want to wish Bill Press congratulations on your 10th anniversary of a great radio show, letting Americans know what's really going on. Thanks.
How about that? Governor Jerry Brown weighing in on our 10th anniversary. Thank you, Governor. We're talking, by the way, no governor has done more on climate change than Jerry Brown has, so it's appropriate that he would tune in at this time because, and he's going to be in Paris for the big global summit in December. Greg Dotson will probably be there too, Vice President for Energy Policy at the Center for American Progress. Does this give us the president's actions this week, doing more than any president has done? To put the United States on in the lead in combating climate change. Does this give us a leg up for Paris?
Absolutely. The decision on Monday was hailed from Brussels to Bangladesh. I think the world really sees the United States taking action. they're very aware of the political opposition to the rule, but they look at the lesson on the Affordable Care Act, and they see sort of an impotent attack on that was unsuccessful in stopping the president, and they're drawing conclusions that we're going to go forward on this.
Right. So Obamacare is here to stay, and so are these new energy rules. Let's say a quick hello to Frank down in Nashville, Tennessee. Hi, Frank. Thanks for weighing in.
Hey, thanks, Bill. Hey, listen, it's Asheville, North Carolina. I'm sorry.
Whoa! All right. Asheville, of course, 880 the revolution. Yeah.
Yes,
we love it.
First of all, congratulations on your 10 years.
Thank you, Frank.
Listen, I just want to make a couple of quick comments here. First of all, I respect everybody in talking about climate change, but nobody seems to want to talk about the cow in the room. You know,
I'm sorry, the what?
The cow in the room, animal agriculture.
All right, yes.
A 2006 report by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations found that animal agriculture is a leading cause of climate change and air pollution, land, soil, and water degradation, and biodiversity loss. Okay? Excuse me. The other thing is animal agriculture is a key factor in deforestation, which releases the greenhouse gas carbon dioxide. And in 2010, the United Nations also mentioned that greenhouse gas from livestock is 50% more than transport planes, trains, trucks, cars, and ships combined. And finally, even environmental groups seem to skirt the whole cow in the room.
Yeah. Hey, Frank, I got your point. Just in the interest of time, I want to give and I appreciate the call. I've read about this before. And I think it's true. Greg, what you heard?
Yeah, agriculture is an important source of greenhouse gas emissions, and I think you're talking about Paris. As we go into Paris, you'll see different countries announce different kinds of actions to respond. And Brazil,
is it going to be on the agenda?
In many ways, it already is.
Agriculture.
I think in many ways it already is. Brazil is basically, they've announced they've taken a lot of action to stop deforestation of the Amazon, which is largely driven by agriculture. And so their contribution, they may not be regulating power plants in the way we are, but they're preventing emissions through their efforts to stop deforestation. I think that there's a lot of initiatives about low-till agriculture and other approaches to try and address these issues. I think with regard to livestock, it's probably the toughest. That's probably the toughest portion of agriculture, and a lot of people are working on that. But it doesn't suit itself to like a pollution control gizmo like other sources do.
Right. Okay. Now, what about opposition to these new rules? There's going to be opposition from Congress. What can they do?
So I would expect this fall we'll see Senator McConnell bring a resolution of disapproval to the Senate floor.
Okay.
I think and
McConnell has told states basically just ignore what EPA has said, right?
That's right.
But states cannot, correct?
Well, there are consequences for ignoring the action, and the way our Clean Air Act works is the Clean Air Act is a federal law that protects people, and so if states won't protect people, then the federal government can then step in and do so. So that was one aspect of this announcement on Monday. EPA said, we're just going to let people know what the federal plan will be if the states refuse to act. And I think that's going to spur state action.
And how about the utility industry? Will they just automatically oppose?
We'll see a lot of opposition from that industry, but we've already seen some announcements of support as well. So I think there'll be a bit of a split there, but I would expect lawsuits soon from some sectors of the electric utility industry.
Again, tell us the significance in terms of if we achieve this reduction of 32% by 2030. Put that in perspective.
Yeah, it's very hard. I mean, these are very large sources, and it's sometimes it's hard to kind of conceptualize what it means, but it would be equivalent to taking 7 out of every 10 cars off the road in 2030. I mean, just imagine what that means from a pollution perspective. It'll prevent thousands of asthma attacks, thousands of premature mortality. EPA projects that for every $1 invested on this rule, it'll save $4 in health costs.
But wait, it's taking the equivalent of taking 7 out of 10 cars off the road.
Exactly. It's huge.
Yeah, and on top of that, then you have the new vehicle standards, CAFE standards that the president has adopted, right?
That's right.
So he's going to go down on climate change for sure as Mr. Green, President Green. I guess.
I'd take that bet for sure.
Jim Inhofe, you know he loves these. There's still some climate deniers out there, but
sure are.
Certainly in terms of legacy, President Obama is committed to this. He'll do as much as he can as president, and he has made it certainly a top priority, and it's about time. Greg Dotson, good work. Glad the Senator's on top of this. Thanks so much for coming in today.
You betcha. Happy to be here, and congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you. We'll come back and tell you what the president's up to today. Just 2 more days before he heads off on vacation.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, we have an exciting third hour coming up, so get ready to switch over to TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Otherwise, those of you watching on Free Speech can come back at 5 o'clock this afternoon for Central or 2 Pacific to watch the third hour. Steve Shepard, chief political reporter from Politico, will be here in studio with us. And then we'll talk to Congressman David Price from North Carolina about the Iran nuclear deal in anticipation of the president's speech this afternoon. Stay with us for hour number 3 coming up.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. Ourselves.
Would you like a bag?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat the threat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
And NIH's We Can program.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, today, by the way, President Obama and Vice President Joe Biden had lunch yesterday. I bet I know one thing that was on the agenda.
Yeah.
I bet I know one thing they talked about. All right, Joe, are you going to do it or not? Damn it, tell me. I want to know. Wonder what answer you got. At any rate, today, a little lighter schedule. The president and vice president get the daily briefing today at 10 o'clock, and then at 11:20, the president's going to be giving a major speech on the Iran nuclear deal at American University. Historic speech indeed, explaining the Iran nuclear deal to the American people. And as a result of that speech, that is the center of attention for the White House today. There will be no White House briefing today. Tell you about the president's speech when we come back again.
This is
tomorrow.
the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
we began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this, because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
In 1963, President Kennedy went to American University to tell the American people how important it is to make a nuclear deal with the Soviet Union. Today, President Obama goes to American University to tell the American people how important it is to make a nuclear deal with Iran, so that Iran doesn't build a nuclear weapon. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? Wednesday, August 5. Great to see you today. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, with the news of the day here from Washington, from around the country, and around the globe. Good to see you today. I am back from New Hampshire and the first big Republican forum, Monday night, New Hampshire, the warm-up act for tomorrow night's big debate in Cleveland, Ohio. 2 debates, actually. The kiddies table at 5 o'clock and the grown-ups taking their seats at 9 o'clock in the evening. Steve Shepard from Politico has been with us before with his forecast on who might and who might not make the grown-up debate. And he's just about absolutely right on. Today we know who the top 10 are going to be. Hello, Steve. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
Missed you up in New Hampshire. But,
yeah, no, I'll be at the next one for sure.
Yeah, okay. We've got the team here, too. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Here we are.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, guys. Nice to see you. Jamie Benson still off for the rest of the week. Ray Rogers here filling in as our screener for the day. So give her a call at 866-55-PRESS. We'll get your opinions on the air. And Cyprian Bolding back from Paris, London, God knows where else he was while he was off in Europe for a couple of weeks. Good to have Cyprian back here as our videographer. And, you know, Steve, we're getting to know these candidates a little bit, you know. I certainly got an up-close look at New Hampshire Monday. By the way, thanks to Jimmy Williams for filling in yesterday. And more and more people are seeing them around, either in their state or on television. We're going to see them again Thursday night at the debate. We're finding out a lot about them. Maybe sometimes a little too much. Chris Christie was asked yesterday about Planned Parenthood, and he ended up talking about family planning.
I'm a Catholic, but I've used birth control, and not just the rhythm method, okay?
I put that in the category of TMI. Right? Are now they all going to feel compelled to tell us about their sex life and what kind of family planning, if any, they use? I mean,
you laugh, but
enough's enough.
But Donald Trump, for decades in New York, I grew up in New York, and Donald Trump, I remember him from reading the tabloids as a kid, and he was very boastful. Particularly, he went through there was Ivanka, there was Marla Maples, he was very boastful about his experiences.
Conquests.
Yes. So
escapades.
Yes. So it's not totally unprecedented on that debate stage.
Let's just say there's some limits here. All right.
I can't think of any of the presidential candidates on either side, frankly, that I want to hear about their sex life. That really interests me. Especially not Chris Christie.
All right. There's the question. No, we're not.
No, don't go there.
Oh, no.
Steve Shepard here for this. This is.
Let's do that in the fourth hour of the show.
I was just going to say, at some point in the middle of August, we may get there.
Well,
we're not
right. We're not there yet.
Right. Steve Shepard here with us his first half hour. Then we're going to talk to Congressman David Price from North Carolina to get his take on the Iran nuclear deal. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. We go to South Korea, where there is a new industry popping up. It is professional wedding guests. NPR has a story about how there is a new industry there for people who have nothing better to do but to go to other people's weddings and get paid for it. People want to have a big wedding in South Korea. They want to show how many friends they have. So they hire people to show up.
That's funny.
And sit in the crowd for about $20 per wedding is what one of these people reports that she makes. So it's wedding season there, apparently, and they want to have a big crowd. This is one way to do it.
Donald Trump paid people to come for his announcement.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Why not?
Do you think they'll pay people to come to your funeral? You want a big crowd to show how popular you were?
That's a good question.
Yeah, you might have a hard time getting your money if you're one of those people who show up expecting to get paid. But yeah, sure. In Ohio, at a prison at the Mansfield Correctional Facility, a very interesting surprise dropped by the prison yard last week. A drone dropped a package of drugs into an outdoor recreation yard.
Get out.
Is this not crazy? They dropped 2 ounces of marijuana, 5 ounces of tobacco, almost a quarter ounce of heroin over the Mansfield Correctional Facility. That ignited a brawl inside the prison yard because everybody wanted to get a hold of these drugs. They don't know. They still don't know where this drone came from, who flew this drone, if someone from the inside got in touch with someone from the outside and had them do it.
Did they get the drone?
No, they didn't get the drone. The drone got away, but they confiscated all the drugs that were dropped.
Amazon.
Black market
I
Amazon.
don't think Amazon is selling heroin, weed, and tobacco yet.
They just deliver it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Remember that Jeff Bezos was said he's going to deliver these packages. This might have been a test run.
Look at the demand for them.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Yeah, right. And congratulations to Mike Hessman. Do you know the name Mike Hessman?
No.
I do.
Do you?
I'm a Mets fan. He was a Met very briefly.
He was a Met very briefly. Very good pull there, by the way, Steve. Well, he spent many, many years in the minor leagues, right? In fact, he spent so much time in the minor leagues that he, earlier this week, broke the minor league home run record. It's not a record that a lot of people really covet because obviously it means you've been in the minor leagues long enough to hit the most home runs. But congratulations to Mike Hessman, I guess.
Does that mean he'll maybe move up to the...
Well, he's older. I mean, he's like 37 years old.
he's
So
not
I
going
think
up to
his
the
major
majors.
league dreams are dead. He's just going to keep playing in the minor leagues. Keep hitting home runs. Why not?
There you go. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. Speaking of major league and minor league, that's what we're going to see tomorrow night, I guess, Steve. So the big news is we know now who's going to be on stage. Fox News has announced, right? And Chris Christie and John Kasich made the cut. Rick Perry and Bobby Jindal did not.
Right. That's
surprise.
Yeah. No, not really. That's really where the
You
cut
called
came.
Kasich.
Yes. No. It seemed very obvious that John Kasich he announced his candidacy on July 21st. The first poll that made up this average that Fox News used to decide who was going to get in the debate began on July 23rd. So to the extent he got a bump, and he did, we saw that first poll was from Quinnipiac University. John Kasich was up to 5% in that poll. That had been much higher. He had been mired at 0, 1, and 2 in all the polls before that. And look, that little bump, not big, certainly not up there with some of the top contenders, but that little bump was enough to get him up there. It was really important for him to be there, though. The first debate is in Cleveland, in his home state. You have your home state governor announce his candidacy, and then 2.5 weeks later, he's not invited to the debate in Cleveland. That would have been a tough sell, and really, really maybe stopped Kasich's campaign and momentum before it even started.
So what does that mean for Rick Perry?
Well, Rick
or
Perry.
Bobby Jindal?
No, Rick Perry is someone. I'll take these separately. Well, together, they're both really banking on Iowa. You were in New Hampshire, and you could tell the candidates that were there who really are banking on New Hampshire. Kasich is one of them. Yeah. Chris Christie's another. For Perry and Jindal, Iowa is really where they have to make their name. I think it was more important for Perry to get into the debate than Jindal. Perry's entire candidacy, what do people remember about him from 4 years ago? They remember, oops. Or they forget what they can't remember. Yeah. And this was really about some redemption for him, and now he's stuck at the junior varsity debate at 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Perry's really interesting. I think that if Perry hadn't done such a bad job last time around, he would be way more of a contender this time around.
When he entered the race last time, when he was the governor of Texas, he jumped in late in June or July of that race. The race was basically formed, and then there he is. He shot up to the top of the polls.
Everybody thought he was going to take over.
Yeah,
right?
I went and saw him speak that September in Michigan on Mackinac Island, where they have a big Republican cattle call. Right. And it was him and Romney who spoke at that conference, and he was ahead of Romney in the polls. He was the number one guy. He was the front runner when he went there. And by the time we got to the first debate in the fall, things started to fall apart for him. It wasn't just the oops moment, but that is what people remember, and that was what people credit his downfall to.
The people... putting aside the issue of whether this is a fair way, right, to decide who's a serious candidate and who's not, I would say it's not a fair way. But this is what the rules are, right? Given that this is the way it's going to come down, can the people, the 6 or 7 who are in the 7 who are at the kiddies table, right? Can they survive after this debate?
I think they can survive. They can survive after this debate, but we're going to do this all over again 6 weeks from now. CNN is going to use basically the same criteria for determining who gets into their debate.
Polls.
This is they're going to use. I think they'll accept NBC, Wall Street Journal, whereas Fox didn't. But and CNN has been very transparent about the polls they're going to use. Obviously, we haven't seen any of them. They're all going to be conducted basically after Labor Day. Those 7 candidates. The next debate is at the Reagan Library, very symbolic. CNN has not talked about doing this kind of kiddies table, JV, AAA debate, whatever we want to call it.
Really? Yeah.
So you kind of need to be, if you're not there for either of the first 2 debates, I don't see how you make a credible case for your candidacy. So someone like Bobby Jindal or Rick Perry, Perry's a little different. His super PAC actually spent money on national cable television ads last month to try to boost his standing before the debate. Bobby Jindal's campaign says they're just focused on Iowa. Well, that's great, except Iowa voters are going to be watching Fox News tomorrow night. They're going to be watching CNN in the middle of September. And if he's not there either time, he's going to be, out of sight, out of mind. So I'm hesitant to write anybody off right now because they didn't get into this debate. But if you're not into either of the first 2, And again, the second one will be same deal, national polling numbers. I don't see, even if you go to all 99 counties in Iowa, I don't understand. I can't see how you overtake some of the candidates who are on television.
This has really changed the nature of the primary politics in this country, hasn't it? Because it used to be you just focused on Iowa and how well they would do in the caucuses in Iowa. Then you would look at the primary in New Hampshire. But now the focus from the get-go, from the beginning, because of what Fox and CNN are doing, are their national standing in the polls.
Yes.
National standing based on what? Name ID, maybe.
Yeah, and you're seeing the candidates do a lot of weird things. I talked about Perry, his super PAC running national cable TV ads. He wasn't the only one who did that. Marco Rubio, Chris Christie.
John Kasich did before he announced.
Kasich basically carpet bombed New Hampshire to get himself up into the high single digits in New Hampshire. You also saw last week, Rick Santorum was on, I think Fox was on every cable network in a given day out of New York. He did the full hour with the 4 women on Fox. I don't know if you know that program at noon. It's 4 women surrounding one man. Yeah. He was the man. He did Rachel Maddow that night. All about, ordinarily you'd think he'd be at pizza ranches in Iowa trying to campaign, but this has changed the game. He ended up finishing 12th right behind Perry. But, it's all about name ID. It's all about national name ID right now for these first 2 tests, tomorrow night and then middle of September for CNN.
Yesterday, CBS News came out with its latest poll showing, national poll, Donald Trump at 24%, Bush at 13%, Scott Walker at 10%. So Donald Trump more than Bush and Walker combined.
Yeah, and it was
everybody says the Donald Trump thing is going to evaporate. Well, maybe it will someday, but it sure hasn't yet.
I still see he has a relatively low ceiling among Republicans. Right now there are 17 Republican candidates. He's certainly the best known. He has an apparently increasingly committed group of supporters. He doesn't need money.
Right.
He hasn't spent one dime on television. Basically, the only money he seems to have spent is on staff and on travel. We obviously won't get another look at his campaign finance report until the middle of October, taking us from July 1 through the end of this quarter, but he hasn't really had to make that great an investment other than losing some of his endorsement and business deals. But other than that, this hasn't really cost him much yet.
Is there a Trump campaign? Does he have offices open in Iowa? Does he have offices open in New Hampshire? Are there people on the ground?
Some. He's certainly organized as a lot of the other top contenders, but that isn't his game.
But he's got to get people out to the caucuses in Iowa. That's a ground game.
It is a ground game, but look, when you're a reality TV star, when you are famous, we haven't seen that in a long time, particularly in this sort of modern day fame. And what we're talking about here, it's kind of uncharted territory.
Oh, gosh. It's fun to watch, though, isn't it? Steve Shepard here with us from Politico. He's having a time of his life. And good to share some of that time with us. What do you think about this whole circus? 866-55-PRESS. We'll continue on the other side.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I see dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting him in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour. Yes, indeed. The top 10 taking the stage tomorrow night for the first GOP debate out in Cleveland. Steve Shepard here with us from Politico, campaign and elections editor for Politico, Politico.com. So, Steve, in New Hampshire, the big presence felt but not seen was of Donald Trump, who leads the polls in New Hampshire overwhelmingly. Was not on stage. He will be on stage. He'll be in the center of the stage because he's the front runner in Cleveland. You're Jeb Bush. How do you handle Donald Trump?
That's a great question. You know, we were talking off air about this. If you go after him, it feels to people like you and me that Jeb Bush is punching down, right? He's. But if you don't, and I think it also matters what Donald Trump does. Donald Trump has spent most of this campaign, the candidate he's hit the most has been Jeb Bush. Yeah. More so than Hillary Clinton. Yeah. He has gone after Jeb Bush and talked about Jeb Bush's
all of them.
Weaknesses and inadequacies.
Bush. Yeah.
Yes. If he continues to do that, Jeb has to fight back. He can't not fight back. But if Donald Trump doesn't and just portrays sort of a positive vision, to the extent that his campaign is a positive vision, I think that's an interesting question for Jeb. The only candidate that going up there might take some shots is Chris Christie. Rick Perry would have, but he's not going to be there. Who's going to go after Trump?
Lindsey Graham would have, but he's not going to be there.
He was there to go after Rand Paul, though, and now he's not there either. But other people will go after Rand Paul. So
yeah, right. I think you got to go after Donald Trump. I think you have to, because otherwise he'll go after you. Preemptive strike. Steve Shepard, great to see you. We'll be watching tomorrow night.
Sounds good.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
the most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we are at 33 minutes after the hour, Wednesday, August 5, The Bill Press Show. We're here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. And our studio in Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building, which is kind of quiet these days, with the House being out of town. I don't know, the Senate, whether they're already out of town. If not, they're leaving by the end of the week, if they're not already gone. But we're here with the news of the day, and brought to you today by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, good men and women of the Teamsters Union under President Jim Hoffa. We all live better because of their good work, and you can find out more about their good work at teamster.org. Their website. When Congress comes back in town after Labor Day, one of their first priorities, of course, is going to be voting on the nuclear deal with Iran, negotiated by Secretary of State John Kerry. President Obama will be giving a major speech explaining to the American people what that deal is all about and why that's important later this morning, about 3 hours from now, at American University. One member of Congress, very active in foreign affairs and the Middle East for a long time, who will be I'm sure studying this deal and listening to the president's speech today. Congressman David Price, representing North Carolina's 4th District, and joining us on our news line this morning. Congressman, it's good to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bill. Good to be with you.
You have had a chance to, at least preliminarily, take a look at this deal and participated in some of the briefings by administration officials. What's your take on it?
I think it's a remarkable achievement, and it has features that other nuclear deals have not had. It has extremely strict and rules of inspection and enforcement provisions. It's not perfect. I mean, no negotiated settlement gets everything you want. But I think this is a far stronger deal than most had predicted. And when you think about not just the content of the deal, but when you think about the alternatives, if you reject the deal, then I think that really clinches the case for getting this done.
Congressman, one of the, and even from friends of mine, and we've heard some Republican members of Congress say, the number one argument against it is that you can't, no matter how good the deal is, you can't trust Iran, right, to live up to any deal. What do you tell them?
Well, that's why the deal needs to be very, very closely monitored and enforced. And, of course, you can't trust Iran. That's why we had to negotiate this deal. You don't negotiate with your friends. You negotiate with your adversaries. And, this kind of reasoning does creep in, I think, often to I'm old enough to remember the opening to China, Nixon's opening to China. And people treated that sometimes as though it was some kind of reward for China or an approval of China. It's the farthest thing from the truth. You negotiate these things because you don't have trust, and you otherwise are facing unacceptable consequences. So, sure, we are going to have to be on this case for a long time. Just simply doing the deal, no matter how good it is, isn't going to finish the matter.
And which I think also speaks to the symbolism and the significance of the president going to American University today. It's where President John F. Kennedy in 1963 explained to the American people why it was important to enter into a nuclear deal with the then Soviet Union.
Right.
And we didn't trust them either, right?
No, that's right. And but those agreements were critically important in protecting our country, and so the diplomacy here is just extraordinary. You mentioned my involvement before. I really have thought for a long time that we simply had to pursue a serious diplomatic path, and the election of President Rouhani in Iran in late 2013 offered an opening, or at least we hoped so, and needed to explore that. And so, yes, we've been working on this a long time, but it was a close call. I mean, those last few days of negotiating, Secretary Kerry will say, were very, very difficult. And so I and others have done our due diligence. There's a classified annex to this and intelligence reports that I think every member needs to read. I did that last week, and I'm satisfied that we have here a deal that if we monitor it, enforce it carefully, it will prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And that's the idea. Any other problems we have with Iran's behavior, and we have a lot of them, there's not a single one of those problems won't be worse if this country has a nuclear weapon.
And another important issue, in fact, I would say sometimes it seems that the leader of the opposition in Congress to this deal is not a member of Congress, but is the Prime Minister of Israel. He is here, and he is meeting with Jewish leaders around the country with one message. Here, Congressman, is Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday.
I don't oppose this deal because I want war. I oppose this deal because I want to prevent war. And this deal will bring war.
This deal will bring about another war. Do you believe that?
No, I don't. And in fact, I think the consequences of rejecting the deal might well include war. We do not need another Middle East war. And besides, even if you had another Middle East war, even if it proved to be a quick war, like Tom Cotton and others say, and of course
right,
we've heard that before.
We've heard that before, right?
But you know, even if you have these deep penetrating bombs and you destroy facilities, you're just setting the program back a couple or 3 years. So war is really not the solution here. And the Prime Minister's reasoning, I did not attend his speech, but I listened to every word of it because you know, he had no business being invited or coming at that point in the Israeli elections. But anyway, there he was, and he gave a speech in favor of a better deal. The notion being that if you just hold off and keep the sanctions on and tighten the screws, then Iran is eventually going to be willing to give up their entire enrichment program. That is manifestly a fanciful conclusion. You know, the sanctions would not hold. The sanctions are a remarkable achievement, but they're not going to hold forever. And so the prospect of going back and keeping the sanctions together, much less getting Iran to cry uncle, it's just not going to happen. And so Netanyahu's never been a reliable guide on this. I think all you need to do is to turn to former Mossad and former intelligence and military people in Israel in large numbers are speaking out and saying this is a deal that will protect our country. Netanyahu, I think, is simply, as one of our members said, Netanyahu never saw a war he didn't want our country to fight.
Right.
And that seems to be in the back of his mind. I don't know what he's thinking, but I think he's dead wrong.
Congressman David Price from North Carolina's 4th Congressional District with us on our news line this morning. And I guess the other big issue, Congressman, that we hear a lot about is that, all right, they say they're going to do this, but how will we know? I mean, again, through the briefings of the administration and studying the proposal, are there tight enough restrictions in terms of inspections and verification and technology to just to the extent that we can to make sure they are complying with this deal?
I think the answer to that is yes. That's not to say everything that is in their heads or that they might develop in a laboratory would be equally easily detected. You know, but the key aspects to developing a weapon or to weaponizing their knowledge, so to speak, you know, having to do with the fuel chain, having to do with the construction or reconstruction of facilities that we're going to be looking at daily if we wish to. I think the checkpoints are there for very careful monitoring and detection. The Iranian scientists have in their minds how to do this. Nobody's going to be able to remove that.
Right.
But the agreement blocks off every path to a nuclear weapon, and you know, you can Secretary Moniz, who's been the secret weapon in all this. I think, the
absolutely,
Energy Secretary.
absolutely.
You know, they're very, very convincing about what we would detect and when we would detect it if trouble started.
And what happens after 10 years? Is it then Iran can do whatever they want? That's another concern.
Well, it is, and there are certain provisions of the agreement that have different timelines. But it's a mistake, I think, to think that all restraints are off once those deadlines occur. First of all, we would have had all these years in the country, all over the country, knowing every aspect of their program and their former program. Just because the specific provisions of the agreement expire doesn't mean that we would then accept the possibility of Iran moving forward with the program. In fact, their ability to do so would be degraded considerably from what it is right now. And then, depending on what the regime looks like and what Iran's intentions look like, then we would have to deal with that at that point. But that's better than dealing with it right now with a breakout time of a few months.
Absolutely, and I think the point you made is so valid that we'd have a 10-year head start, right? And during this 10 years, we'd have a breathing spell, certainly better than the present thing now.
Well, yeah, not just a breathing spell, but a unprecedented intrusion into the country and into all aspects of their program. So, even if they intended to resume the program after the agreement expired, they would do so with considerable handicaps in terms of our ability to know what's going on, and then if we had to take measures to prevent that resumption of a program. That I think we have to acknowledge that after 15 years, that might be a possibility. We might still have to worry about this, but it's a lot better to defer the whole thing for, in some aspects, 10, some 15 years, and then deal with it as we must. But there's nothing in that agreement that gives Iran a license to move forward at any point. On the contrary, the agreement assumes that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
And that's a point that Secretary Moniz has made to us reporters at the White House as well. Congressman, you've looked at it, you've studied it, you've come to the conclusion to support it. I hope not just all of your fellow Democrats, but at least a handful of Republicans will do the same. We'll be watching that. Congressman, good to talk to you again. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, Congressman David Price, great guy, does a great job. 10 years ago, I was with him on a congressional delegation to the civil rights battlegrounds of Selma and Montgomery and Birmingham. Great man. We'll be right back with the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
10 minutes before the top of the hour. Well, if there's one news that, one issue that is dominating the Republican side of the debate these days, it is not the Iraq War. It is not climate change. It is Planned Parenthood. In fact, Monday night, up in New Hampshire, I think the one question that the lame moderator had, that he kept, whenever he would run out of gas, he would just throw this question out. And he at one point, I think he asked every one of the 14 candidates the question, do you think we should be funding Planned Parenthood? Or should we defund? Every one of them would say, they're all the same. No money to Planned Parenthood. No money to Planned Parenthood. Knee-jerk reaction. Nobody took the time to say, you know what? Planned Parenthood does a lot of women a lot of good, and they have been for a long time. And to show how little they understand it, Jeb Bush yesterday, now this is the day after that Republican forum up in New Hampshire, he's speaking yesterday to the Southern Baptist Convention. You know, man, he's going to say anything that those ministers want to hear, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Southern Baptist
So he's
Convention,
asked about Planned Parenthood, and listen to where he goes.
You could take dollar for dollar, although I'm not sure we need $500 million for women's health issues. But if you took dollar for dollar, there are many extraordinarily fine organizations, community health organizations that exist.
Whoa. We don't need $500 million. That's $500 million. We don't need,
which is a drop in the bucket for DC terms. Let's be clear. I mean,
yes, and for what we spend for tax cuts for the wealthiest of Americans, or what we spend for the latest, new weapon system, we don't need. Right? We don't need it for women's health care. Women's health care for him, just not a priority. Right? Now, but first of all, what's implied in the answer to that about Planned Parenthood is, whether or not he knew what he was doing, Jeb Bush is admitting that Planned Parenthood is about a lot more than abortions.
This shoots so many holes into this Republican talking point that we've seen so much in the last couple of weeks, especially about defunding Planned Parenthood. They're trying to push the narrative that Planned Parenthood is government-sponsored abortion, which it is absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And by law, it cannot be, and no federal money spent in any way for any abortion-related activity. So that's not what it is. But it is about women's health, and Jeb Bush and his fellow Republicans don't care about it. Hillary Clinton made this point loud and clear yesterday.
Now, he's got no problem giving billions of dollars away to super wealthy and powerful corporations, but I guess women's health just isn't a priority for him.
Yeah, it's not a priority for him, and it was not a priority. It's not a priority for any of the other 16 Republican presidential candidates. Again, yesterday, Hillary Clinton, she gets it.
This really isn't complicated. When you attack Planned Parenthood, you attack women's health. And when you attack women's health, you attack America's health.
Period. End of story. These guys, they are so, they're just so clueless when it comes to this. So here we are, as Elizabeth Warren yesterday said on the floor of the Senate. What happened to these people? Did they wake up and think they're back in the 1950s or the 1890s? We're talking this 21st century, and they're talking about getting rid of all funding for women's health. Honest to God, God forbid any one of them ever make it to the White House. You haven't heard the last of me yet. I'll be back with a parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, you can't depend on the media to get to know the candidates. You have to see them up close, which is what I did Monday night up in New Hampshire at that big GOP forum. 11 candidates on stage, 3 of them by remote. Only Donald Trump chose not to attend, which is too bad because the latest poll shows Trump way out in front with 24% nationwide, more than double Jeb Bush or Scott Walker. Watching the candidates perform without Donald Trump was like watching the circus without the main elephant act. And every one of them had the same positions, basically, against Obamacare, against raising the minimum wage, against the Iran nuclear deal, against Planned Parenthood, and for sending ground troops against ISIS. My conclusion is I saw all 14 of them. Not one of them is qualified to be President of the United States. My parting shot for today, folks. Thanks for joining us. Come back again tomorrow.
This
We'll be
is the
looking for
Bill
you.
Press Show.